Okay, so today is session number 16 of the second semester on braided fusion category. Okay, so yesterday we started the proof of the main theorem 444. I remember this proof will involve an intermediate for category called K3. We want to show that K1 is 2 equivalent to K2, and for that we will show that we will go through an intermediate called K3. So we defined K3 this way yesterday. So remember that you have to be careful, the notation in this paper do not align with the notation, modern notation, because this kind of tensor category is in fact a multi-tensor category because the unit object is not simple. So it have the object in K3 as an action of G cross G, such a decomposition for the unit, and a relative braiding between these two tensor functors, the equivalentization of G tensor 1 to A, so the forgetful functor, and forgetful functor from the equivalentization of one tensor 1 cross G to A. And the notion of relative braiding is defined here. So you have this kind of braiding which satisfy some hexagon action. Okay. And okay, now remark 446. In this remark, we will consider remark regarding the component of the unit. So by in the book of Cassel, published in 1995, proposition 624. So the ring so A is curved A. So the endomorphism of the unit is a commutative ring and from that you can Cassel deduced that the home space between these two components is 0 if whenever the G1 is different from G2. So remember, the unit object decomposed into, so this may not be simple, decomposed into object labeled by the element of the group. So, so it is explained in this book that you can deduce that you have that, but maybe you just need to use that, so you can maybe you can deduce that as an exercise. And in addition, the tensor product of two distinct components is 0. G1 tensor in G2 is equal to 0 for G1 different from G2. And that will be, we will consider that later. So let me put a little star because we will refer to that later. And that follow So if you want to see the details, you have to go to the book by Christian Cassel. I guess this is a book called Quantum Group. Famous book. The idea is that it follows from the identity. So A tensor identity of one equal identity of one tensor A with A in non-homomorphism. But it does not matter so much. In fact, this is kind of classical result. We don't need to care about that. Consequently, the isomorphism. We have an isomorphism between one tensor 1 to 1. This induces for every element in the group an isomorphism between EG to each. Okay. Second point. So this second remark is about, in fact, we can consider the notion of tensor category of sheaf of finite dimensional K vector space. But in fact, we will see that you don't need to be afraid about the notion of sheaf, which is we don't need to go into the complete definition of what is a sheaf, because here it's over on the finite group. So in fact, we don't need to be careful. You don't need to consider the entire definition of a sheaf. In fact, because it's over a finite group, you just need to consider here a G-index family of finite dimensional K vector space. There is no topology, there is nothing. So but I will recall, let SHG denote the tensor category of sheaves of finite dimensional K vector spaces on G. So let me mention something regarding sheaves. First, since G is finite, a sheaf is just a G-indexed family of finite dimensional K vector space. So in fact, it's a little too much to talk about sheaf in this case, because the notion of sheaf is much more complicated. Because when the group, for example, is not finite, if you have a continuous group, you have to be careful regarding the topology or something like that. I forgot. Anyway, to the second point. So in this case, this is, as a category, is essentially vec G, but as a category, not as a tensor category. But you have an essential difference is that here you consider the pointwise pointwise tensor product. So in fact, it was not specified in the paper whether you should, because I read in the literature, usually the tensor category of sheaf, usually you have the pointwise tensor product, whereas in here you have the convolution tensor product. So it's the same category but with a different tensor product, pointwise for that and convolution for that. This is the only difference. And by pointwise, we mean the pointwise tensor product. So U tensor VG is UG tensor VG. Whereas in VecG, you have the convolution tensor product. The usual, which is tensor product, which is something like that, U tensor V of G is direct sum for HK equal G of UH tensor UK. Okay, so be careful here. For the sheaf, tensor category of sheaf, we consider this pointwise tensor product. Again, this was not specified in the paper, so I suspect this is the one they consider. In the literature, most of the time, this is like that. I saw some rare example where they consider the convolution tensor product also for sheaf, but usually it is like that. And because they choose to specify something different from that, I expect that because this is the only possible difference, you really have pointwise tensor product. Anyway, so okay, that's for sheaf. So now, what about this sheaf? So we are still in the remark by the previous remark. So by what? Previous remark. So by, I want to say by one. I guess they refer to one. The decomposition. '85, which is this one, the decomposition of the unit here. So this is 85. So by 85, so by one, the decomposition 85 determine a fully faithful tensor product, tensor functor. So this is denoted 87. So an embedding from sheaf to the category A. So remember A, what is A? A is an element of K3. So a category satisfying all that. So you can embed this category of sheaf, or this category of VecG with pointwise tensor product into A, where we shift F map to direct sum G in G, Fg tensor EG, where Fg here is a vector space playing a role of multiplicity space. Just multiplicity space, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And you see here, yeah, the fact that you have, so I wanted to denote, so the point star, which is that the fact that the tensor product of two different components of the unit is 0, align with the fact that we consider pointwise. You see, so you have something pointwise. If it is not pointwise, you see here, you should be something should be 0 when they are different. So this corresponds to something pointwise. So it should be pointwise. If I'm not mistaken, this align, so above align with pointwise tensor product on shift of G. Okay. Okay. So now, so the goal. Now remember, we have we already consider two functors from K1 to K2. Now we want to from K2 to K1. We want the inverse, and we'll go through K3. So through this kind of category. So we will construct the inverse two functors from K2 to K1 as a composition K2, K3, K1. So the following lemma will provide this functor. Not yet the equivalence, but just this functor. Following lemma provide the two functors from K3. Oh. Oh, no. The following lemma will provide from K3 to K2. So the following lemma will provide this way. And then we will show that it's a two equivalent, so we will provide the inverse. So we are still, so let me, maybe I will write here. Okay. Okay, so lemma 447. Let A in K3. Then, how to make something in K2? So remember K2. What was K2? K2 is a two category of braided fusion category containing rep-G. So we want to take a category of this form, A, and we want to make a braided fusion category containing rep-G. Okay. So this A in case 3 is not braided. Yeah, there is this kind of relative braiding, but it's not, may not be a braiding. It is not a braiding, and it do not contain rep G. In fact, it contains sheaf G. Okay, so then, first point. So what do? You make the equivalentization by G tensor G, by G cross G. The tensor category A G cross G is fusion. The relative braiding on A induce a proper braiding on A equivalentization G cross G. The relative braiding on A induces the braiding on A G cross G. And 3, the functor 87, which is here. Yeah, this functor, the embedding of sheaf G in A. What about this functor? It's a fully faithful braided functor. So induce a fully faithful braided functor from rep G to A equivalent G cross G equivalentization of A. So induce a fully faithful braided functor this way, rep G. So in fact, the G cross G equivalentization of sheaf G is rep G to that. So this is called 88. Okay. So that rep G is in A cross A. So we deduce that this is in K2. Okay. So it's a braided fusion category containing rep G. So it's in K2. Next. So before the short proof, there is a short remark regarding this point. A remark. For 48. So in the third point, we used the equivalence shift G to rep G. So here, G cross G act the two-side translation. G cross G acting as two-sided translation G1, G2 times this component of the sheaf is f of G1, G2 inverse. Okay. So we have that. And so why it's a kind of equivalence? In fact, it map F map to the neutral component, where E in G is the identity neutral element. So what can we say about that? So we are reduced to Fe by above action. But the equivalent structure, the equivariant structure is given by the family. So this is the same story we explained earlier, I guess 1 month ago, I forgot. When we reduced to some, I forgot. We talk about some orbit and some representation. In fact, this is the same thing here. It's a G equivariant. It's a G equivariant object. We consider G equivariant object, but this acts like that. So in fact, this is completely characterized by the neutral component. But it's not just consider the orbit. Remember that the G equivalent object is a pair, an object, a G equivalent object, and a family of isomorphism. And this family of isomorphism is characterized, provide a structure for representation on that, completely given by the family. And we already discussed that. Family of isomorphism. In particular, you have this kind of UGG inverse from Fe to Fe. And this is giving element in rep G or object in giving object in that. Okay. So this is via this isomorphism. This is a representation of G. And so then it's an exercise to really show that you have this is really an isomorphism here, an equivalence. Okay. So that's all for this remark. So now we can consider the short proof. proof of the lemma. 447. Okay. So these 2 points, in fact, are immediate because remember the relative braiding here is defined by some hexagon axiom. So when you consider, this is the same argument we said before, when you consider the G, the equivariant object, then you have a true braiding. And the third point, I guess we have some details here. So the second and third point, so statement 2 and 3 are immediate, but you can fill the details in exercise if you want. So what about the first point? So we already, it is also clear that the equivariantization is a rigid tensor category. So exercise also. Okay. Next. By a previous proposition 412, it's a semi-simple. By proposition 412, it is semi-simple. Okay. By the third point, we can deduce that the endomorphism ring of the unit is one-dimensional, I guess because the unit is inside RepG, and RepG is fusion. So you deduce that the equivariantization of A by G times G is fusion. From the third point, the the endomorphism ring of the unit object of equivariantization is K. Therefore, it's fusion. Is what we denote and one. Okay. And that's all for the proof. Okay. So now, another remark. So remark involving Deligne tensor product. Remark 449. Let D. So you consider D to be this specific equivariantization. So you have the embedding from RepG to D. from the previous identity 88, which is here. So using that, so this embedding give a braided functor. Oh yeah. So you combine that with a Deligne tensor product. So give a braided functor from the rep-G, Deligne tensor rep-G, embed into D tensor D hop. So in fact, here you can say rep-G tensor, Deligne tensor rep-G hop embed into that, but in fact, rep-G hop is equal to rep-G, so you get that directly. And but you have also a braided functor from that to the Drinfeld center of D. This is something we already mentioned, I guess, in section 2 last semester. So combining this with the braided functor from D up to the Drinfeld center of D, as mentioned in section 210 last semester, we obtain a functor from Deligne tensor rep-G to the center. We obtain a functor rep-G, Deligne tensor rep-G to the center. So a direct check or exercise. What? Direct check show that this functor coincide with the braided functor rep G cross G to center of D. Okay. So D is that. So we know that rep is there. Wait. Yeah. So rep. So you have this notion of central. So we know that this satisfies this by some previous section. Because there is a kind of central, the functor from that to that is central, so we go through that. And the exercise is to show that this functor is the same as this functor via the Deligne tensor problem. Explain here. Yeah. So as I said, arising from the fact that D is the category of G cross G equivalent object. Is the category G cross G equivariant object. Okay. So the next lemma say that the previous functor from K3 to K2 constructed in lemma. So this functor, map A to that, from K3 to K2, is two equivalence. So in the next lemma, we will explain how to make the inverse. The two functors from K3 to K2. So which A map to A, G is equivalentization constructed in lemma 447 is a two equivalence. So proof. So for the proof is we explicitly make the inverse. We construct the inverse two functor explicitly. So you start from D, the G braided, start from D, the braided fusion category containing rep G. Let D be a braided fusion category containing rep G. So by result in, so remember in section 3 we consider a braided functor from D de l'intersect D up to the Dirichlet center of D, a braided functor. Yeah, so that's very strange. Let me check something. Oh, 650. Wait a minute. Yeah, so in the previous paragraph, they mentioned this embedding of that. In fact, I did not check the reference, but they refer for that section 2.10. But here, for the same thing, they refer the section 3. So I hope there is no typo. I did not check the reference. One has a braided functor. Anyway. So be careful about the reference here. It is strange. Combining with this with the braided functor. Anyway. So there is a braided functor D tensor D up to the center of D. But now they refer to proposition 373 and remark 38A. What about that? 37. This was about the way to characterize non-delineate using some factorizable. 3.8a is saying that the existence. Okay. So what about section 2.10? Section 2.10 was what? Center of a braided fusion category. Ah, I see. Yeah, okay. In section 2.10, we consider for the first time, yeah, this kind of embedding using the braiding of D and its inverse. You can have an embedding with D and D hop, but it is really in this proposition and here that we show that this embedding is in fact what? Yeah, it's time. Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah. In proposition 3.7, they are saying that yeah, in the non-degenerate case, this embedding is in fact an equivalence. Okay, so it's not clear for me whether you really need to use that because here D is not assumed to be non-degenerate. So let me put some question mark about the relevance of putting that here. Maybe just section 2.10 is enough. Anyway, so I'm a little bit late in the pause. Let me see. Proof. Okay, so let me make the pause now. Up to 30. No, 13. Okay. Okay. So I feel like we don't need to refer to that because this is very specific to the non-degenerate case. You just need to refer where this embedding is defined. So I guess you don't need to consider that. Yeah. Okay. So now you have this functor we already mentioned the whole time, and you compose with the embedding, the following embedding. Composing this with the embedding which is equal to that embed into that. Yeah, so this is basically what we said in the previous remark. So this is quite strange. Yeah, the braided functor from that to that. Yeah, this is exactly. I guess I did not. This is strange. The content of the proof here really look like what is written in this remark. So then you get a functor. Anyway, so you compose with that and you get an embedding of the link tensor E to the Drinfeld center. Opposing this with the embedding yield. Rated functor from that to that, hence D is a fusion category over E. And that's very funny. That's interesting. So so what about that? So you start from D. Yeah, so in fact, it's not so surprising that this remark align with this lemma, because in fact, the D, we obtain this D this way, and we got this property. And in fact, we want to prove the inverse. So we construct the inverse. So we start from a D containing E. And in fact, a braided fusion category containing E is a fusion category over E tensor E. So that's very funny. That's really funny. So you only have a braided fusion category containing E, but in fact, as a fusion category, it's over E tensor E. That's interesting. Because remember the notion of over for a fusion, you have this central via, you have this. And the is a fusion category over TAC. Yeah. So interesting. And this is because maybe this is because of this this fact that to prove the main theorem, we go through an intermediate involving G cross G because of this fact. In fact, I guess maybe the idea of using this intermediate come from this fact. Okay. Okay. So now you define, so we want to make the inverse. So now we consider the disequivalentization. B, it's deequivariantization in the sense of section 4.2. Yeah, we don't, because it's G cross G, but it's not as a braiding, just fusion. So since A, in fact, A is not braided. Since A contain so disequivalentization of E. So wait, what about that? Which is that. What about that? So remember, here, Schiff appear as the disequivalentization of E by G cross G. Okay. But here, so refer to remark 4 80. So we have that. Sorry. This one is equivalent to this one. So in particular, if you do that, you can cancel that and you get that is equivalent to that. So this is what was written here. So this equality follows from proposition remark 484, 1894, 4.48 by remark 448. This is equal to this. So this is equal to this. Equal to this. Okay, and D. So D, yeah. So you take E in D. So you have this here, because you apply the disequivantization. So you also have, by definition, you have, so E is in D, imply is in D. Okay. So you have also that. So for that contain. Okay. So where proof? We are still in this proof. So here, this A. Let me emphasize that this A is defined this way. For later. Okay, so you have that. So A contains the sheaf, tensor category. So since A contains that, it automatically carries the structure of 1 and 2. Okay. Since that, it automatically carry the structure of 1 and 2 of definition 445. So let me come back to that. Okay. To remember, the sheaf involve this kind of thing here, because it was, as it was here in this remark, we consider this kind of thing. So that should not be so complicated to prove, but let me write exercise. It automatically carry exercise. Okay. And here, let me write also this interesting remark regarding the sheaf. So you have so vec G equal vec, but in this specific case, vec G equals G, for this specific G equals G here, you have sheaf. So in this specific setting, you have that, but here you have that. But that's really strange. Because, yeah, you do that. You really have that. So you really have to be careful the kind of action G. This is not the same action. In fact, they are not compatible. But it is this way that this sheaf appear. Anyway. So now we need the point 3 in the definition. Remember, definition 4 here. Here. We have that and that by the exercise. Now we need this relative braiding. So we will need to consider the equivalentization of the disequivalentization, but a kind of half equivalentization, because we made a disequivalentization like that, but then we will make a disequivalentization just of the right or the left G. Okay. So to construct the relative braiding, we use the following observation due to Joyal Street. The following observation due to Joyal Street 93. So it states the following. So for any tensor category, B1, B2, and B, the category of pairs of tensor functor Fi from Bi to B I equal 1, 2, equipped with a relative braiding between the two, equipped as defined before, with a relative braiding between F1 and F2 is canonically equivalent. So this category is canonically equivalent to the category of tensor functor from the Deligne tensor product of B1, B2 to B3, to B. So you can reformulate, in fact, this relative braiding as a property. You can characterize that with the Deligne tensor product. So braid between F1 is canonically equivalent to the category of tensor functors from B1 Deligne tensor B2 B. Okay. So okay. And now here we apply. So for now we will just apply this sentence to, you take B1 equal B2 equal B equal D. So D braided. And F1 equal F2 equal identity of D. So that will not be enough for what we are looking for, but as an intermediate step, we will first apply this Joya-Lestrade remark this way to get what? To get a braiding on D. You see that the braiding. No, to start, no, you use that, and then see that the braid. Okay, so then you can use the braiding structure on D, because D is braided here. And if you apply that, all that, then a relative braiding, the relative braiding here, under this assumption, is exactly the braiding on D. And later we will use again this on the other way to get the point 3 we need in the definition for an element in the category K3. So we will apply this 2 times. One time here in a more or less trivial way, and another time later in a non-trivial way. So if you apply that this way, so the relative braiding is exactly the braiding of D. So we see that the braided structure on D define. So from the braiding structure on D, which is exactly the relative braiding, you get a functor from D tensor D to D because of Joya-Lestrade. You define a tensor functor M from D tensor D to D. And here, let me write that. So this implies that the relative braiding is the braiding of D. Okay, so the braiding of D give a functor by Joya-Lestrade. So this functor is called 89. And this functor, this is a tensor functor, so it has a tensor structure. And we will need to consider the tensor structure. So with tensor structure, so M of x1 de l'intenseur y1 tenseur x2 de l'intenseur y2 isomorphique to M x1 de l'intenseur y1 wait. Tensor. I will draw a picture to clarify that. X2 de l'intenseur y2. Yeah, no, it's okay. Given by the following picture, so by, I guess, in the paper they omitted to write the inverse of this functor identity x1 tensor breadings x2 y1 tensor identity y2 from x1 tensor x2 tensor y1 tensor y2 to x1 tensor y1 so x2 so y2. So I wrote this way without saying inverse, but I guess wait. X1 y1. So I have a doubt. I have a little doubt. Let me draw the picture. So you have x1, x2, y1, y2, identity, and breading here. So you arrive to x1, y1, x2, y2. Wait. X2. Let me check the paper. I have a doubt here. So you are in lemma 450. So with the tensor structure. I guess, yeah. If you consider, yeah, the tensor structure, yeah. I'm done. This tensor structure on the Deligne tensor product is just, so you have this tensor, this, Deligne tensor, this. When you apply M, you get that. So it's not the inverse. Yeah, I was wrong. Okay, sorry about that. So you really have x1, x2, y1, y2. Okay. So just need to. So A tensor B, Deligne tensor C, tensor D is of the form, no, the other way. A Deligne tensor B tensor C Deligne tensor D should be A tensor C Deligne tensor B tensor D. Okay, so where are we? Here. So you have this breading defining this morphism. And here the breading is the breading of this. Where C denotes the breading of this. Okay. So I'm really going too slowly. I only need 2 pages. Okay, so what about where are we? We are still in the proof. Yeah, the proof can be very long. What are we proving? Yeah, the inverse. Okay. So what do we have now? We apply Joya Street. So we get a functor, tensor functor from D de link tensor D to D. Okay. Okay. So now recall that D is a fusion category over E as we mentioned before. But we can also see D de link tensor D as a fusion category over that. So both can be seen as a tensor category, the fusion category over that via the following embedding, usual embedding. So you have E de link tensor E embed into Drinfeld center D, Drinfeld center D, which is Drinfeld center of D de link tensor D. And here you use what? To UV, U tensor V, map to U. So you use this braiding as the second component in the Drinfeld center, and V this way. So this is okay. So this is called 90. So using that, you have this central functor. So making D de link tensor D also E tensor E over E tensor E. So now, what about so we need also to check that this is a tensor functor. So why this is a tensor? So this is a tensor functor, okay. But why it's a tensor functor over that with this additional structure? So it is straightforward, but we will still provide some details. Straightforward to check that the functor 89 is a tensor functor over that. So this is a tensor functor, that's okay, but why it's a tensor functor over this additional structure? So let me explain as quickly as possible some idea regarding that. So since this and this are fusion categories over that, E tensor E, we have central functor phi1 from that to that, so by definition, phi2 from that to that. Okay. Moreover, the tensor functor M composed with phi1 and phi2, both from E tensor E to D. So both are canonically equivalent. Are canonically equivalent. Canonically equivalent because isomorphic. Because both identify with the tensor functor so from Deligne tensor to tensor in D, I guess. Okay. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. So you apply M here. You have M here. You come back to D. So you really have something from. So this is E to D. Okay. So because the two identify with the same, they are isomorphic. So I don't write all the details. So then, so they remain to show that M is compatible with the central structure. Thus, it remains to verify that M is compatible with the central structure phi1, phi2. More explicitly, we must check that for all x and y in D and A, B in E, the following diagram commute. This is an exercise to show. Wait. Where is my exercise? Let me draw this diagram. So you start X tensor Y tensor A tensor B. And here you do some, you have the braiding here, an identity here, and you go to X tensor A tensor Y tensor B. So I guess I will need more space. Let me move that on the second page. Okay. So this is this arrow of the diagram. Here, so this arrow of the diagram is defined by this braiding. Now you apply this arrow A, tensor B. Tensor X, tensor Y, and this arrow, you permute these two. So you take the half-braiding given by the central structure. So remember, when you define the central structure involves the Drinfeld center, and the Drinfeld center is defined as a pair where you have some isomorphism this way. So here it is by the central structure phi on phi 1. So phi 1 is so from that to that to that. So phi 1 of A de l'intenseur B commute with that. More precisely, consider the half braiding from the Deligne tensor. So it's a little, it's really confusing. And same from here. A tensor X, tensor B, tensor Y. Here by the central structure on phi 2. So let me recall phi 1, phi 2. Okay. So X, where is X? X is in D, A is in E. So, okay. And here, you just do the braiding. An identity. So sorry about this little confusing text, but you just use, I'm just saying that you use the central structure of that, which involve the Drinfeld center. We define with half braiding. The half braiding are just isomorphism of this form. And here you need to consider the element of the Drinfeld center is image of that consider with some half braiding, which half braiding is a kind of natural transformation. But if you apply specifically to that, you get you can get an isomorphism between these two. Anyway, okay, and this is the other arrow, so it's almost time. Let me take a few minutes to. So what about that tensor structure of 81? Tensor structure of 81. 9. Ah, yeah. Yeah, this is this arrow. These two arrow, this arrow and this arrow defined this way are exactly the tensor structure of M. So here it's the tensor structure. So tensor structure. in M, so this was equation 89. Idem here. I guess I have to stop here. So, okay, so that's all for this check. So we have that this functor here is tensor functor over that using these details. Okay. So the next step we will do next time. We will start from that. So next time we will start from here. And we will apply the disequivalentization. So we will do G cross G of that. G cross G. We apply the disequivalentization of that, and we will see that in fact the disequivalentization of that is of the form D1G de l'intenseur DG1. And then we will be able to apply Joyal-Street again. So then we will really have this 1G G1 functor, F1, F2. And so with tensor product, and by Joyal-Street, we really get the relative braiding we are looking for. So unfortunately, I have no time, but it remains only a few lines to finish, but I have to stop. So we will finish. Let us complete the proof next week. And so I will stop here. Okay.